Hey everybody, I'm Nova. Um, I guess since the Stereo Kit talk is coming up next, I'll just talk about my personal project. So, basically though, we have the North Star, but we're obviously going to want to sort of, with a couple of different projects, create an overall open source ecosystem. And so, I'm kind of doing the area that is, how do I put it? The area I'm dealing with is the least talked about and yet one of the most important pieces of the stack, at least from a user perspective. It's called the display server. So basically, you have a base operating system, right? You have your device drivers for your North Star, and then you obviously have your apps and such. A display server is right in between those two, right? It's sort of what people generally think of as the GUI of an operating system. And especially in XR, it's pretty darn crucial to get it right, or at least very well functional. So I'm working on a project called Stardust. It's technically called Stardust XR, but informally I call it Stardust, which is that middle piece though. It's so for example, instead of what's it called, HoloLens, right? Where you have a rigid fixed UI, you open up an application from your regular old start menu, which only works one way, and then you have a giant panel floating in space, and you can only interact with it by, I forget how you interact with panels on the HoloLens 2. But I know you can point at them from afar or such using pinch. But all that, Stardust basically leaves that up to different kinds of programs called Stardust clients. So, yeah, okay. That's what I was wondering. Honestly, they should make it to where you can pinch above it and it sort of projects your pinch point. Anyway, regardless, though. Stardust is the open source version of all of that, though. And as a result of making it open source, it offers some really cool advantages, which I'm in the process of programming now, including you can take your 2D applications and you can sort of put them in these virtual objects called panel shells. And that allows you to effectively morph their interface, right? So you can have your regular 2D clock application or whatever around your wrist as if it was an actual digital bracelet using Leap's, digital wearables thing. You can, using the lenses and lens frames, you can have XR content that is able to be quote-unquote split-screened, where you actually have, sort of like two spaces and you have a portal in between them. Or at least that's what it looks like to you. And they can be any two VR apps or AR apps or whatever, and you can literally just step between them, though. Stuff like that. Stuff that doesn't really fit inside of an application, but also is very, user-facing. So, this is just an advertisement at this point. I'm sorry. I don't know. Any questions, suggestions, or... It's like an X server for XR. Yeah. Obviously, it's not exactly like X. It's not exactly like Wayland. But, I'm sort of developing it based on my user UX experience, right? User experience, whatever. I'm developing it based on my UX experience as well as, because Stardust doesn't actually implement the UI stuff itself. It's just a base that allows everything to interconnect. That means that I don't have to be the only person working on this, or me, and I'm going to obviously have a bunch of contributors, so we are not going to be the only ones. And that means, though, if you're in a new and unfamiliar situation, though, you can just get a new Stardust client off of whatever shop there is, and then you can just instantaneously work with whatever other applications you have. So instead of having the rigid things that don't work very well for accessibility, and they don't work very well for flexibility and all of that stuff, they don't work very well for privacy, you can just use Stardust and you can just get a new virtual object, though. And this is not online. This is not metaverse type stuff. It's all 100% local. It's all based on Linux. It's all on top of Linux, and it's the missing layer that nobody really has thought of super duper in depth. Like, you've got Simula and XR Desktop and such, and they're really cool, but I wouldn't exactly call them a functional operating system for day-to-day usage. So, sorry, a functional display server. But yeah, any questions or such? Oh, and by the way, I talked a bit earlier about, how we could possibly assemble a Linux distro for the North Star. This is what ideally we would put on it. Because Stardust can be as light or as heavy as you want, because all the functionality is defined by the clients themselves. That effectively means we could scale this all the way from an XR2 all the way to a gaming computer. So, because it's Linux, it doesn't care whether it's on ARM or x86 or whatever. So, it's obviously using StereoKit. In this particular case, it's using the OpenGL form, the OpenGL graphics backend for StereoKit and so on. Actually, Alex, if you were typing something, you can just finish it and interrupt me. It's fine. I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions or anything.
Sounds really cool, Nova. And I think part of the reason no one has any questions is because it's too cool.
I don't know about that. There are a lot of cool things you can do with it, though. Having a fully flexible, GUI that actually allows you to have, like, super duper advanced features, but because they're spatialized, it makes them a heck of a lot easier for someone to interface with. And, you don't need nearly as much abstraction. Like, you can actually just physically connect a device to a one virtual device to another virtual device, and instead of having to deal with something like on your sound panel, how, oh no, I didn't select the right audio input and all that, you can just connect it visually, and that kind of stuff is the kind of stuff that I want. Just, you make it accurate, and you make it easy to use, and you make it fun. And of course, because Stardust is open source, you'll be able to do other cool stuff. Like, I'm planning on making a tool called Blacklight, which effectively allows you to visually take a look at exactly what is happening under Stardust. So, like, Stardust uses stuff like SDFs in order to handle every input interaction. I could go in depth with the input system, but needless to say, you can actually ideally look through like a little looking glass, and you can actually see all of the fields involved in this, and so on. Yeah, actually, heck, I think I might be able to get a demo of Stardust working. Hold on to your butts. This one is, we all know how live demos go, but I think I can do it.
So
5 minutes? Sounds good. Oh, what do you know? It actually worked this time. So, it's currently running in 2D mode, but this is the slider demo that I came up with actually last weekend. So as you can see, you can slide each individual slider, and you can also shift between them. There will be some UI components inside of Stardust, but every bit of this UI is actually implemented in the client itself. So you can see all of that, though, just regular old sliders. You can also control them with hands, but that might bite into my time a bit too much. But this is the kind of thing you would see with Blacklight. So, as you can see, everything's tinted a little slight bit mint green. And the reason why is because that is the field debug. So, I can actually, I can see, for example, if I squash these down, I forgot to make the field smaller. So, supposed to get, yeah, I'll do that after my time is up. But, so this is the basic idea behind this. Obviously, it's not very well developed because it's an infinitely flexible thing. It's gonna be a while, but, Oh, and by the way, Nick is going to be really happy to hear this. I'm thinking of putting the fields on a different render layer so that you can literally have like an actual magnifying glass that actually uses something like a grab pass with that render layer, and then, actually be able to look right through it and such. So that's another cool use. I think my time is pretty much up, though. 5:30, right?
I mean, hey, it fitted in there well for not having anything planned, Nova. So congrats. Everybody
And I'm
get
also really,
fun.
really tired. Hooray!
You did great. Yeah, congrats for doing a lightning talk within like 10 minutes of time, completely unprompted. That is a skill
Listen,
that
I
I
literally did
do
a
not have.
lightning talk for, I think it was like 1,000 people, and my slides were totally broken. And my talk was about choosing the right tool for the job when all my slides were broken.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Yeah, I actually especially love Blacklight. I love that the fact that you're developing a debug system directly into Stardust from the outset.
Well,
That
it's
is
not going to be
absolutely
fully
beautiful.
directly in Stardust though. Like some
Mhm.
parts are going to be the Stardust client called Blacklight, and some parts are going to be inside of Stardust itself.
Mhm.
So, it's a tag team
Still
thing.
very cool.
Because that way you get maximum security, maximum privacy, and maximum flexibility if it's a sandbox and you can see what's going on. All right, I'll sorry about that. Yeah.